Purim Sameach HaFreilichen Purim. I have in front of me something that has never really, well, unfortunately, you do know that here in the great and holy land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, we are experiencing historic and unprecedented times. And while I'm not the Dayan, I want to share with you just some of the psukim that are coming out. I have been asked various questions about fasting, et cetera, which I was able to give um, various students and people answers on. And I want to share with you some of the psukim that have came out. Let's say, question that was asked by the great Dayan, Rav Amram Fried, based in Bnei Brak. He asks, what happens if there's a hefsek, right? You're sitting there during Kriyas Megillah, and then you need to go to a safe room, you need to go to a mamad, you need to go somewhere because you hear a siren. He says, "In ledaber bisman halicho lemerchav mugan." You should not speak. Don't make a hefsek. Ulam b'diavad. If you spoke, ein ze ma'akev. Okay, so again, if you need to direct someone where a stairwell is or where it is, etc., then you can do so, but it's preferable to be silent. He then continues, point number 2. He says that when you're in that safe room, when you're in that merchav mugan, yamshichu likro Megillah mehechon shepatzku. Let's say you stopped at a certain parak or a certain pasuk, then you should continue. And the halicha eino mahava, that the walking there is not considered a hefsek. Point number 3 that I want to share with you, again, all of this is from the great Dayan, that is Moreno Hagon Agodo Rav Amram Fried. He says, Imlo imshichu likroas a Megillah. If they're not going to continue to go ahead and read the Megillah, again, a person was in shul and then they went to a safe room. Yamshichu likro mehechon shepasku. So then you should continue from wherever you stopped in shul. He then continues further and he says, "Va'alkein im hifsik bedibur tzarech lachzor ulevarech shenis." However, if a person beina brachos l'tchilas akriya, if we're talking that the person's holding by the brachos, so then tzarech lachzor ulevarech shenis, you even need to repeat the bracha again. Lifnei shemaskal likro es bracha al mikra megillah. Again, this would apply to anybody who needs to be hearing Megillah. However, he says, Ach al birkos sha'asanisim ubirkos shechiyanu. When it comes to those last 2 brachos, lo yachzor, you do not need to go ahead and repeat it. What about Shmiyas HaMegillah Toch Kidei Azaka? I've been asked this question. What happens, Rabbi Green, if we're going to be hearing the Megillah and then a siren is going off? Says Rav Amram Fried, Im Shamas Kol HaMilim, if you heard all the words, Yatzi Dei Chova, so then you're fine. However, if Ulamim Hichsir, if you miss some words, Olav Lahashmi, so then you need to go ahead and be mashlim. You need to complete it, and you should go ahead and hear that part again. You could, he says, kishemashlim ba'atzmo, when you complete it by yourself. Tzarech lahakpid lahashmiya esamilim laozno. You yourself, you need to hear it. Achli blisha yashmiu kadei l'shalol. So this gets to be very, very tricky. Okay, either go to another reading unless you know how to read it yourself. Now, what happens if all of a sudden there's someone who's a member of Hatzalah and he's reading, or a member of the army, or someone needs to go take care of his family, etc., whatever it may be, and the Baal Koreh is not able to continue. So he actually discusses this very case. He says, Hemshech HaKriya Yedei Baal Koreh Acher. Are you allowed to have, it doesn't normally take place, you do find more often than not in America that someone will read the first 3 aliyahs and then someone else may continue. However, he brings down, he says, Kasher rak chelek me'atzibur halach l'merchav mugan. Let's say that only part of the tzibur goes to the mamad or whatever it be. They could hear the Megillah from another Baal Koreh. So that's fine. The final section that I want to discuss is what happens if you need to finish the Megillah biyichidus, right? Baruch Hashem, the Shatovo Matzlachas, we have people who their wives may be expecting, whatever it may be, this does happen. So he says, Anoshim shaholchu lebeitam ve'enam yacholim lachzor, if they return home, as even our Rav did over Shabbos when he checked on his wife. As Baruch Hashem, I could say that our new chosin went and said, okay, I'm not going to stay and listen to any more Torah after shul at the Kiddush. I'm going to go check on my wife. So guess what? And you're not able to return to a reading? He says, you could go ahead and finish up at home. Mitoch chumash. You could finish it in a chumash, not even needing to read it out of a Megillah. Ubitnai, he says, however, sheshamuas rov ha-Megillah mi-Baal Korah. That's assuming that you heard rov of the Megillah from a Baal Korah. V'ofen zeh in levorech, however, you do not say the bracha that we say, haraves rivenu, shalachar hakriya. After the reading of the Megillah, we always say a bracha, raves rivenu, mipnei shemevarchim bracha zu. He explains that we only say that bracha when it's betzibur v'lo b'yachid. And since you're going to be finishing this not betzibur, but b'yachidus alone, so then no can do. You don't say that bracha. I guess a final PS that I would mention is that he is of the opinion, and I will state this to all those that ask me as well. Hashomeya kriyas Megillah bi telephone. Are you allowed to hear kriyas Megillah via a telephone today? And the answer is lo yotzi yedei chova. You are not yotzi your chova. Mir Hashem, we should be zocha to truly dance in the streets of Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh la Yehudim ha'isa ora v'simcha v'sasa v'ikar. Kain Tialanu, a freilichen Purim, a good Purim, Purim Sameach to all.